Welcome to another episode of Bright Headed Publishing Audiobook Book Club. I am your host, Kelly Morgan. Today we are going to talk about proofreading and what that means. And do you need a proofreader for your book? Today I have the opportunity to be speaking with Agnes Lim. She is a professional proofreader. She provides services to help you better communicate and convey your information to your target audience. She is going to be sharing with us exactly what she does and what a proofreader does. Welcome the newest member to the BHP Audiobook Book Club, Agnes Lim, professional proofreader. Agnes, thank you so much for being here with me today. I am glad that you are a member of the book club, and I'm excited to get into the service that you can provide for authors and how you can help them, get their books to market. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Okay. Hi, Kelly. Thanks so much for the opportunity. Thanks for having me. My name is Agnes, but I also go by the name Sixian. And I'm here to talk about proofreading. So I understand that most of your listeners are perhaps writers and authors, and I just really want to share a little bit of what I do as a proofreader and the other proofreading services that writers and authors might want to consider getting, even as you write your story or you write your key message. I'm sure writers and authors have a story to share and to tell the world, or they could be a college student with a dissertation, or perhaps an entrepreneur with a fabulous digital product and offer to share. Really, the list goes on. I'm a budding writer myself. I'm trying to write some children's books. And as a writer, I realized that, sometimes writers focus so much on getting our story out, getting our message out there. We just want to put words on paper or on the screen. We just keep writing because, that's what we do, especially when we are in the flow. Many novice writers may not know that most texts do go through quite a number of rounds of drafting and revision and editing before they are considered finished. As much as writers think that our product is good to go, actually, it can benefit from several rounds of editing and proofreading. So there are many stages to this editing and proofreading. It can include, planning the big picture of the content, copy editing, and then the final stage is really proofreading and formatting. And really, most of this work is invisible to the reader. But what I've learned is that if any of these processes are not done well, and if there are, errors in the page, sometimes it can be very glaring, and that becomes very visible to the trained eye and who may be your reader. And if you are an author, I'm sure that, that's something that we all don't want. So I will speak about proofreading since I'm no expert on the other stages. After a piece of work has gone through, like a developmental editor or a content editor, a copy editor will then fix the detail in the product. A copy editor will read every single word and sentence to fix the grammar, to fix the punctuation, spelling, consistency, and more. And some of this is also done by the proofreader. So there may be a lot of changes at this stage, and this is all done before the final design and layout. So once the final design and layout is done, then a proofreader comes on to read in very much detail, every word, every sentence, every punctuation, every spelling. And the proofreader helps the author deal with consistency and things like preferred spelling. For example, just a simple example, some might spell t-shirt with a hyphen, but some might prefer not to. So there may be a lot of changes that go through this stage. So the proofreader will ensure that everything is just as it should be. Sometimes the formatting might change how the words are laid out in the page, so a proofreader will go through that in detail. So Let me just walk through in detail what exactly is proofreading. I think some writers might think may not need a proofreader, but let me just share what a proofreader does. So first, the proofreader works on the edited text in final layout. And as I said, after the final layout, things might move and text might accidentally be out of place. Second, a proofreader checks for essential errors in spelling, grammar, and punctuation. Third, the proofreader makes minor changes for sense. The proofreader does not do a major rephrasing of a sentence, but if a sentence flows better just by the change of a word or two, a proofreader will suggest to do that. A proofreader will ensure that all the page elements are consistent and correctly placed, and that the style decisions are applied. So this will involve frequent discussions with the author. So just a short note here that the writer needs to be comfortable with the proofreader and to make clear what your expectations and preferences are. And the final bits are the proofreader will check that your tables and illustrations are correctly numbered, they are placed correctly, check that the references and citations are correctly done, and if there's any index, it's formatted consistently. So I will sum all of that up, is that your proofreader will help you to ensure that your message is communicated with consistency, with clarity, and in the right context. So of course there are many different rules of writing. Writing as an academic will be different from writing a business proposal, is different from writing a blog post. But good proofreaders will know what the rules are and what are conventions and what are simply preferences. And a good proofreader will work with you to ensure that your message gets across in a most appropriate way to your intended readership. So I've shared in general what a proofreader does and what I offer as a proofreader. But I also like to say that proofreaders all have different niches. So let me share a bit about myself. Besides proofreading, I also am an advocate for strength-based parenting. I'm also a counselor in training. And that's why that's my niche. The proofreading materials that I help with are related to parenting, are related to counseling, are related to theology. So although I proofread as part of my job, and I know the conventions of of writing and the organization that I serve, as a postgrad student, I'm studying counseling. I also need to ensure that papers follow the APA convention. And now as a proofreader for mom entrepreneurs who are writing for their digital products, I ensure that their writing is consistent, it's correct, it's clear, and it's based on their preferred style and design. Sometimes I put myself in the shoes of a writer who is seeking out proofreading services, and I suspect that they might inadvertently wonder to themselves, will I be embarrassed if a proofreader spots my typos and my grammar mistakes? And I would like to assure whoever is listening that a good proofreader should really never embarrass you. So find someone who you feel comfortable and confident to work with. A good proofreader will know that the writer has spent time and effort to write a good draft. And sometimes when the writer is in the flow, grammar and typos are really the last thing that should be on the writer's mind. So a good proofreader is really not out to judge writers. Good proofreaders are there to deal with the queries and the amendments of the author in a sensitive manner. A good proofreader will make constructive suggestions to help the writer improve his or her writing, and so that the message is conveyed well to the intended audience. So before I end off, I just wanted to offer some tips for any writers to find a suitable proofreader for your work. There are many different kinds of writers, there are many different kinds of proofreaders, and maybe a good matching is essential for the process of work to be enjoyable for both sides. So the first point is, and I would like to encourage writers to know what you're looking for. Is it an academic piece, a business piece, personal writing, a fiction or non-fiction piece? What is your subject matter? Who will read your text? Is there a deadline? And how many words or how many pages? These are essential information which a proofreader will need to know in order to decide whether he or she is the right proofreader for you. Second is to ask for recommendations from your network. It could be friends or fellow writers that you know. It could be in Facebook groups. It could be on Reddit, or there are many out there. So many proofreaders who are hustling online will offer to get in touch with you. And which brings me to the third point, which is feel free to ask lots of questions about the proofreader. What is their experience? Do they have testimonials? Why are they proofreading? Do they have a niche, or do they intend to have a niche? As a proofreader who is just starting my business, I just like to say that we all start from somewhere. So for writers, if you find a proofreader that you like, and even if the person seems to not have that full experience, I would say consider giving the proofreader opportunity anyway, for a reasonable fee. I think that's where that negotiation happens. Fourth is, I think, trust your instincts. Do you feel confident about what your proofreader says he or she will do with your text? And fifth is, have you made clear your expectations of how you will work together with the proofreader? Whether it's about timelines, whether it's preferences of styles and writings, whether it's mode of payments. I think we all want to be professional here. And just as a proofreader offers you a proofreading service, I hope that writers can also honor that service. Sometimes writers may wonder, maybe I should just proofread my own work. I'll just like to say that it is difficult to see errors in something that you have written yourself, because our brain automatically tells us what we meant to write, not always what's actually there. So it's beneficial for someone to be an extra eye to scrutinize your work. I think that's all I have. I just like to share that if anyone would like to work with me, my niche is in any parenting and counseling and theology material targeting parents, educators, and mom entrepreneurs. I do public policy and I write and edit for a living, but I'm also a student and I write academic papers all the time. And I'm also an advocate for strength-based parenting, and because I've read so many good stuff and learned so much from many people, I want to help others to communicate clearly, simply, and correctly, so that more people can benefit from the key messages of others. So if you want to reach me, I will drop a link with Kelly, and just feel free to email me and send me 1 or 2 pages of your work, and then I'll be sure to get in touch with you to discuss whether this is something that I can help you with, what is the timeline that I can work with, as well as what are the fees. I'm a very reasonable proofreader. So yeah, Kelly.
That is very good. I never really thought about a proofreader, but this is my question. Should you not have a proofreader read your stuff maybe before you really start to submit it? Let's say that you are trying to get a traditional publisher and you're starting to send your manuscript out, and even before you send it to an editor, you said that you need a second eye on what you write because you no longer see the errors. Is there not? Do you think it's a good idea to have somebody proofread your story or your work right after you write it?
I think it's useful to have a second eye, but this second eye may not be proofreading the details. This second eye, it's more useful for this second eye at that stage to focus on the big picture, to see whether the flow of the piece of writing is in the right direction before you get a proofreader to scrutinize, word for word, line by line. Because so many things can happen in the process to change the overall structure of the writing that it makes less sense to get a proofreader to be so detailed at that stage.
Glad that you came on to the podcast and were able to share what you do. You had mentioned that you have a certain niche, which is the parenting and the theology and the counseling. Would you ever consider proofreading fiction?
Oh, certainly. I mean, I would consider it, but as with everything, there is priority. So if I have other pieces of work which are more related to my niche, then I will give that preference. But I love to read on my own. So yeah, if there's any opportunity to proofread fiction, yeah, I will certainly do it if I have the time.
Well, Agnes, thank you so much for being with me here today and becoming an official member of the book club. I will definitely make sure that all your links are available for anybody that is interested in reaching out to you, and you can work with them. And I do like the fact that you do other things besides books. You were mentioning other types of written works that I don't think people think about. And so that, I think it's great that you offer this service. So thank you so much for being on the podcast. I always like the authors and those who support authors to be able to leave some knowledge behind for those who are thinking about becoming an author or self-publishing or in the industry. What knowledge or what inspiration can you leave with us today?
I think I would just say, just do it. Sometimes we spend so much time in our heads, dreaming up stories, thinking that they want to do various things. And I would say, just do it. Just get it started. If you want to reach a proofreader, just get in touch with one. And then you never know where it leads you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. And definitely, you are more than welcome to come back at any time. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Bright Headed Publishing Audiobook Book Club. I have been your host, Kelly Morgan. Today we talked with Agnes Lim, professional proofreader, and she told us all about what type of proofreading she does and why you need a proofreader and why that's so important. All the links to reach her are in the podcast description. If you are an author or someone who supports authors and are interested in being on the podcast, email me at brightheadedpublishing@gmail.com. Again, thank you for listening, and as always, keep writing.